And then the next thing I remember hearing was a man's voice. Then I heard the voice again saying the same words. I have a knife at your neck, don't make a sound, get up and come with me. And I remember opening my eyes and there, sure enough, was this man.
Brian David Mitchell was born on October 18th, 1953 in Salt Lake City, Utah, as the third of 6 siblings in a Mormon household. His mom was a teacher and his dad worked in social services. To educate Mitchell about sex, his father allegedly presented his teenage son with explicit images from a medical publication. And to instill independence, he would take Mitchell to unknown areas of Salt Lake City and leave him to navigate his way back home.
At 16 years old, Mitchell exposed himself to a minor and was sent to a juvenile facility. At the age of 19, he wed and fathered 2 children with Karen Minor, who was 3 years his junior. Following their divorce, custody of both children was granted to Minor, leading Mitchell to temporarily take the children to New Hampshire. He lived in New Hampshire for 2 years and became part of a Hare Krishna commune. Mitchell struggled with drug and alcohol issues throughout his adult life. However, upon returning to Salt Lake City, his brother's recent mission inspired him to pursue sobriety. On the day Mitchell and Debbie's divorce was concluded, he wed Wanda Elaine Barzee, born November 6, 1945 in Salt Lake City, a 40-year-old divorced woman with 6 kids. Barzee's relationship with her children was strained. One daughter would later call her a monster, claiming that as a girl, Wanda served the child her pet rabbit for dinner. Both Mitchell and Barzee were engaged in the LDS Church, although Mitchell's beliefs would grow more radical over time. Mitchell and Barzee ultimately departed from the church, with him adopting the name Emmanuel and asserting that he was a prophet of God who had prophetic visions. Barzee adopted the name Hephzibah, and the pair would beg and minister in downtown Salt Lake City. Mitchell depicted himself in a manner similar to Jesus, wearing white robes and tunics and sporting a beard.
In the early morning of June 5th, 2002, Mitchell entered the residence of Edward and Lois Smart in the Federal Heights area of Salt Lake City, where they resided with their 6 kids. He kidnapped 14-year-old Elizabeth from the room she shared with her 9-year-old sister, Mary Catherine, who was roused but feigned sleep. Outside the boys' bedroom in the family, she tiptoed back into her bed, where she concealed herself for an unknown duration, likely more than 2 hours. Shortly before 4 a.m., Mary Catherine roused her parents and recounted the events. Believing she was just dreaming, they were skeptical until they discovered a screen window that had been slashed with a knife. Following her abduction, Smart was brought by Mitchell into the wilderness to a site outside Salt Lake City where Wanda Barzee was present. Smart's account reveals that Barzee ultimately began to wash my feet and instructed me to switch from my pajamas to a robe-like clothing. When I declined, she threatened that if I didn't comply, she'd get Brian Mitchell to tear my pajamas off. I donned the robe. He arrived and conducted a ceremony that was meant to unite me in marriage with him. Following that, he went on to violate me. Mitchell asserted that he was an angel and informed Smart that he was a Davidian god who would appear in 7 years, be stoned by a crowd, lie lifeless in the streets for 3 days, and then resurrect to eliminate the Antichrist. Smart, he claimed, was the first among numerous untouched brides he intended to abduct, all of whom would join him in his fight against the Antichrist. To prevent Smart from fleeing, she was secured to a tree with a metal cable, granting her restricted movement outside the tent she stayed in. While in captivity, she was compelled to adopt a new name, selecting Esther, inspired by Esther from the Old Testament. During court testimony, it was disclosed that Mitchell raped Smart numerous times, at times multiple times a day, made her view pornographic videos, and frequently threatened to kill her. He frequently made her consume alcohol and take drugs to decrease her resolve, and he both deprived her of food and provided her with trash. Smart's mistreatment was enabled by Barzee, whom Smart later described as the most evil woman she had ever encountered. In September 2002, Mitchell and Barzi departed from Salt Lake City with Smart, moving to San Diego County, California, where they confined Smart in a campsite in a dry creek bed in Lakeside. Mitchell and Barzi moved with Smart several times to various encampments in San Diego County, frequently shifting in the early hours. On February 12, 2003, Mitchell was apprehended in El Cajon for unlawfully entering a church and spent several days in custody due to the event. Smart joined Mitchell and Barzi in public on many occasions, but her presence was often hidden or overlooked through various means of disguise, typically involving a headscarf and a veil covering her face. In August 2002, approximately 2 months after Smart was abducted, Mitchell created a scheme to escape Salt Lake City with Barzi and Smart potentially heading to Boston or New York City. Smart additionally went to grocery stores, a restaurant, and spent a week in downtown Salt Lake City with Mitchell and Barzi, remaining unnoticed. In October 2002, Smart's sister Mary Catherine abruptly recognized that the kidnapper's voice belonged to a man known to the family as Emmanuel, an out-of-work individual whom they had employed for a day to perform roof work and rake leaves. On March 12, 2003, a couple who recognized Mitchell from news photos observed him with 2 women in Sandy, Utah. The women were Elizabeth Smart, cloaked in a grey wig, sunglasses, and a veil, and Wanda Elaine Barzi. During questioning, the officers identified Smart, leading to the arrest of Mitchell and Barzi. Wanda Barzi ultimately entered a guilty plea and received concurrent sentences of 15 years in both state and federal prison. Nonetheless, because of the postponements and psychological assessments, Mitchell's case took nearly 8 years to reach trial. The trial of Mitchell commenced on November 8, 2010. The defense admitted that Mitchell was indeed accountable for the offenses, but argued that he was legally insane at the time of the crime and should thus be declared not guilty by reason of insanity, NGRI. On December 11, 2010, the jury rejected Mitchell's insanity defense and found him guilty of kidnapping and transporting a minor across state borders for the purpose of engaging in sexual activity. U.S. District Judge Dale Kimball imposed a life sentence on Mitchell with no chance for parole. Mitchell is presently completing his sentence at the United States Penitentiary in Tucson, a secure federal prison located in Tucson, Arizona. In 2016, Barzi's federal sentence ended and she was moved from the Federal Medical Center, Carswell, in Fort Worth, Texas, to the Utah State Prison in Draper, Utah, to start her state prison term. She was freed in September 2018.